Batwing number 15, written by Fabian Nicieza, art by Fabrizio Fiorentino, which is different from the people who have been writing this, but it still continues on the same story. So, yeah, so we open up with, last issue we had, what's her face? Uh, Rachel. She got stabbed by Father Lost, and Batwing's like, no. So this issue picks up with David doing some soccer skills, and he's like, hey, what do you think of this? And she's like, I'm so angry because the world is the way it is. And David's like, yeah, you need to let that go, otherwise it's gonna get you killed. And then we see nowadays where she's sitting in a pool of blood and she's got a giant dagger in her stomach. And Father Lost is like, well, didn't really want to get involved, but she was being a pain in the butt. So here we go, Batwing. And Batwing comes in being like, oh, this is it. I'm coming after you. And then Father Lost just does the mind control thing again because Batwing has yet to come up with anything that can work against that. But this time we see internally, like, a sort of subconscious thing where Father Lost is like, hey, most people in their subconscious are like, big and egotistical, but you are like small and pathetic, and therefore I'm just going to boop, and he pulls his heart right out of his chest. And then we see his whole history of like, oh, here's how he became Batwing. He was, child soldier and whatnot. And then Father Lost is like, me and you aren't so different. I also lost, like, my family and stuff like that. But then one day I met, quote unquote, her, and she told me I was special. And apparently she gave him the gift of this mind control stuff and basically told him, like, hey, look, don't bury down your anger. Use it. Make it a weapon. Inflict it on others, because what's the point of having gone through such horrible crap if you can't make other people go through horrible crap as well? And that's immoral. So at that point, police start showing up, and Father Lost is like, all right, well, since I'm doing the mind control thing on you, attack the police and kill them. So Father Lost starts making his exit, and the police all start surrounding the area, and Batwing just starts unloading on them. Like, he's got some flashbangs. He just starts beating the crap out of people's faces. And when he sees Kia, he's like, oh, Kia, she's my best friend, and I want her to be so much more. I want her to be a blood smear on the ground. So, quite a little bit. And it seems that Kia actually recognizes that this is David, but she doesn't immediately say anything. But Matu's on the comms, and he's like, hey, I'm going to stop you now if that's cool. And he presses a button, which causes a, like, electric shock through his system, and his suit locks up. And Kia's like, oh, hey, there's my niece. She's getting away. Oh, but Batwing was attacking me. And so Batwing finally is like, one of the other cops tries to take off Batwing's mask, and Kia fires a shot in the air being like, don't do that. It's probably booby-trapped. And he's like, good call. So Batwing once again gets another shock to really get him out of the mind control stuff. And Matu's like, you good? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. Please stop shocking me. And so at that point, he just walks over to Rachel, picks her up, and flies her to the hospital. She manages to get stabilized, and as she wakes up, she's like, oh, am I being under arrest because you're dressed as a cop, David? And David's like, no, you're not under arrest. But what happened? She's like, I embraced my anger. So at that point, David's called into the police department. Or, he's in the police department. He's called into the back room. And Kia's like, hey, you want to tell me anything? And he's like, nope. And she's like, all right, play it that way then. So they say, all right, we've got something that we can finally do. We're adding some tech to the suit to stop the mind control stuff. It could end up killing David, but not before it takes out Father Lost. So at that point, we see all these other people who are being controlled. They are all drawn to this low-level sonic thing, which I guess is what Father Lost is using to control. And Father Lost is like, all right, well, you were a fool to come here. I own you. And Batwing activates the weapon, which causes Father Lost the same amount of pain. Like, it blows it back at him. And so Batwing flies up in the air. He drops a whole bunch of the tech in order to basically put it's a Faraday cage. It severs the connection that Father Lost has on all of his guys. And Father Lost tries throwing a punch at Batwing. He nearly falls off a building, and Batwing's like, "Oh, you know who owns my body and soul? It's me." And we see Father Lost losing his grip, and Batwing's about to let him drop, but he's like, "No, I'll save him because he deserves actual real punishment." So we get the little epilogue page here. Rachel disappears again. Everyone's like, "Oh, Father Lost, like what happened there?" Leela gets home safe, Kia's niece, and at that point, David's like, or Kia's like, "David, Batwing, why do you think he does what he does?" And David's like, I don't really know anymore. So leading on some sort of a cliffhanger there. It's a fine wrap up to the arc, but it does feel very fast. It feels very like, okay, yeah, this was kind of just spinning its wheels a little bit, and then all in one issue, he was attacked, mind controlled, snapped out of it. His friend may have discovered his identity. They found a way to sever the thing. They completed in severing the connection, and then they arrested him. All that in one issue. Very fast. And even then, it still felt like it took some time to do other stuff. Now, fast isn't inherently bad, but it did feel rushed. So it's fine. It's not the best wrap up to an arc. I mean, I was already a little bit iffy on this arc to begin with because it just didn't seem to have like a real focus to it. It was just kind of doing some other thing for a while. And then it was like, and then Batwing gets involved. If they went in more as to like how this cult was actually, I don't know, I wanted to be more directly connected to Batwing, I guess, is the issue. It just felt like Batwing showed up because why not? He's the hero that they deserve. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 6. And it's not that, like, new writer, the writing was fine, the art was fine. It was just, this should have been like 2 issues. It was just a bit too fast. So 6 for this.